Okay, so now we're going to actually zoom in a little bit more now. Okay, we're gonna come in and zoom up and really take a look at that right side. So this is what we call the pivot point. And a pivot point is simply just a tight area or a price formation on the right side that is an actionable price. When you get through the high of that price point, that's where you're going to be placing your buy order. Now, there's a lot of ways that these pivots can line up and can set up on the right side. We're going to show you the few ways that we use them. And if you use the pivot points from these various levels up the right side of the base, you're not gonna miss too many stocks that set up and move out as market leaders. They're gonna give you enough entry point techniques to be able to get on these stocks at some point. So the thing you got to realize that a pivot point sometimes will set up where all the price action sort of aligns across to that pivot point, and then other times it's going to set up a bit lower. And I'm going to show you these two types of setups here. But let's start off with just looking at a very straightforward, simple setup where basically all the price action is lining up right across, and the breakout is going into or very close to new highs or even all-time highs, 52-week highs. And sometimes they're not going to be that close to all-time high or 52-week high. It's going to be off the high, which we'll look at next. So right here, looking at AMSC, American Superconductor, you can see here big move too, over 200% in just 13 months. Here's the contractions: 1, 2, 3, gets real tight on that right side, and then bang. And look at how the very next day, you'd be buying it right here. And then the very next day, look at the volume and look at the explosion that comes out of here. Again, that's where supply stopped coming to market. And now the stock is very, very vulnerable to moving very quickly in a direction once that supply comes in. That buying comes in with a lack of supply. So again, looking at CBPO. Right. This is another stock that, and again, looking for super performance. I know we're going to look at a lot of charts here, and many of these you'll see went up 500, 1,000%, 8,000%. Super performance is also quick moves, very fast. I mean, if a stock goes up 80%, 60, 70% in a number of weeks or a couple months, that is a big move, and that can really, really make a difference on your portfolio. You don't have to get a stock that goes up 500% to make big returns. If you're compounding these and you're getting stocks that are moving even 25, 30, 35% in just a number of days or weeks, you could be turning this over and getting a huge return. So again, I want you to look at how the stock, once it comes out of this base, just moving sideways and going through these contractions, look how it explodes and comes out, and it's so efficient coming out of there, right? That's the lack of supply. The lack of supply sets that up. And what you're trying to do is time that trade perfectly, right? That's what specific entry point analysis is. Coming to that very, very specific day, right down to the day, and really zooming in here to get that buy point perfect. All right,
and Mark, the interesting thing is that China biologic products looks so similar to the one before this. They're almost the exact. I mean, that's almost the exact same chart. And so that's why we keep on saying these patterns repeat themselves over and over again.
You will see, so again, you will see so many look like they're the same chart. And again, like a fingerprint, you look at it and it looks the same, and these will look the same, but they're going to have a lot of little nuances in there. And we're going to get even deeper, and we're going to show you. You'll be surprised at how many little things are in there. It took me a lot of years to get these eyes where I can really see all the little characteristics. Dave is just phenomenal with dissecting volume and seeing things that most people just don't pick up. And we're going to go over all that here. And again, looking at these charts, history repeats. These repeat over and over. This is not something where we've come and said, hey, we're gonna let's go find the charts that make our point. Nope, these are just these are all the trades that I've made. These are going back and looking at the stocks that made the big gains, the big fast moves, and stocks that I traded based on, on these characteristics. 95% of these are all trades that I made in real time on this day, buying right here without the benefit of hindsight. And again, that's what you got to get good at. So again, here we go. Here's the pivot setting up. Now, you see the pivot point here is below this high here. That's okay. But here's sort of the general rule of thumb. If you have, so this is a big question that I get all the time. Okay, this pivot, this last tightening takes place, but the high right here, okay, is a little bit higher. Maybe it's 20 cents higher. Do we buy when it comes through here or when it comes through here? Well, the answer is you can do both. You can buy a little as it starts to move through the pivot, and then when it clears, what we call this the turn, when it makes the turn and gets to that high point right there, you can buy some more. Or if it's so close, you probably just want to wait until it gets through this price right here and get a little more confirmation, because it's not really costing you much. If it's costing you 10 cents or 20 cents, wait for the confirmation. But sometimes these pivot points are a good distance below. And by the time it even gets up to that point, you're already at a decent profit. In this particular instance, it's really, really close. Here's a stock I bought back. This was Baby Stores. Some of you that are older and may remember this. This is going back also, into the 90s here, 1998. This is really a perfect IPO base where you set up here and you go through that first base after an IPO, and you can see as we draw a line right through here, you see how the majority of the price action, and the closer we get to the right side, the more this confluence area becomes sort of a very, very specific price point that's very close. And you can see the pivot just a little bit lower than this price right here. So you can wait for it to clear that. As you get over here, even here, there's only a couple days where it trades above. And as you get further away, you may get more days to trade above. But as you get closer to the pivot, now you really start to tighten up, and that price point becomes the area that you're looking to move through. I'm going to show you example after example here. So here's right here where we just looked at, and then you got another opportunity here, and then you got another opportunity here and here. So you've gotten all these opportunities in this stock. So again, if you miss this buy point, you got more buy points to take advantage of. Here's something more recently, McAfee setup. You can see right here, see how the pivot's here, but then you've got the turn right here. And again, if you don't know these terminology, don't worry. We're gonna get into it more, and we're gonna show you, and everything's gonna be explained. We're not gonna leave anything unexplained. So again, right here, this pivot right here, as it's moving, you'd be buying it as it comes right through this area right here, and you've got the contractions 1, 2, 3. Take a look at here. Here's EDU. I bought this stock coming out right here, and this is really just absolutely as perfect as it can get. Just super tight right here, tightens up. Now, let's talk about volume a little bit. You see how the volume comes way down here, and then it expands. This is what I call the 1-2 punch, where you contract in the pivot, and then you expand on the breakout. This is what you want to see. And you want to see the contraction actually in most of the tightenings. And the tightening, the areas where the stock is going tight, you want to see the volume come in. And then when it's moving up the right side, that's where you want to see some volume. But particularly when it's in the pivot, that's where you want to see the lowest volume that you could possibly get. And this really throws people for a loop sometimes. I'll find, I'll put a stock on our service, or I'll be buying a stock, maybe talk about it in Twitter, and those people say, oh, that stock is trading, 20,000 shares a day. Yes, but it normally trades 600,000. And now in the pivot point, it's come way down and the stock is trading very little. That's opportunity. All right. That's not something to be afraid of. That's exactly what you want to see. That's saying that stock has stopped coming to market. Supply has stopped coming to market. Now, Dave, you just said, some of these stocks look exactly alike. Look at these two. Here's new education, new Oriental Education, 2007, up over 100% in 7 months from here. Here's how do you pronounce this? Meli, MELI, also in 2007. Look at this, the perfect price setup. And same, here it is. Here's the 1-2 punch. Look at that day right there where I have 1. That's right in the pivot at the last day, just before it takes off. You see how it's just about the lowest volume in the entire move. And then the volume comes in. There's your 1-2 as it comes out of the pivot. And there's your VCP.
Yeah. And the information on these stocks are exactly the same. Most of them have, very, very strong quarterly earnings and annual earnings and all the canceling characteristics, and they have similar patterns. The only thing that really changes is the name on top of the information. Everything else is basically the same over and over again.
And look right here, 75% in 13 days. See, that's a super performance move. I'd actually rather have, if you could give me these stocks all day long, I'd take these before the big giant multi-year movers, even, the really big movers, because if I could compound 50, 75, 100% every couple weeks or even every month or two, oh boy, what a return that you can rack up. Look at the contrast in volume here. You see the volume in the base, right? And then when the stock gets going, see all the volume coming in here? That's the institutions coming back into the name. And that's precisely what you want to see. That's where all the excitement happens. It happens after it comes out of the consolidation and moves out and is in new high ground. Remember we talked about new high ground? If you're going to make a big move, the stock's going to be having to make new highs. 81% in 38 days. Here's American Superconductor. Goes through the contractions. This is really just textbook, picture perfect, 60% in 17 days. So now we're getting into some of the very quick moves here, that stocks that went up in just a couple weeks or a couple months. But again, all the same characteristics. Here's the 1-2. Look at, you could barely even see the volume. It's almost non-existent. And then boom, you come back in here. All right, let's look at another one. Again, look at these two. They look almost identical. They look almost identical. You get the same type of action here. You tighten up on the right side. You get that last tightening. There's the 1-2, right? Contraction, expansion, comes out, and a nice efficient move to the upside there. Netflix, we talked about that before. Same thing, 1-2. Here's Shopify, 2018. Very similar. Contraction, contraction, coming in, getting very tight. Here's your fourth contraction, and it tightens up. Look, the volume comes way down, and then wham, look at the volume coming in. Big institutional volume coming in, breaking this out. No wonder it turned out to be a big winning stock. But in this first 8 months, it was up 175%. Quest Communications, this was 98. This is one that I bought. I remember this one well. Tightening up on the right side, and then gets really, really tight. Volume comes way down. And as it breaks out, you see the volume come in, you get the 1-2, and that's where you're buying it. Coming right, I was buying it right there. Let's look at another one. We look, this is Nightbridge Tankers. I actually thought this was a stock that we looked at before, once again, because it looks so similar. Same characteristics, 44% in just 12 days. All right, so now you can get multiple pivots. All right, you might get multiple buy points. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually start my position. I start with a smaller position. This is a popular question, is how do you add to a stock and pyramid in a name? So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll buy the stock, and then within the base, it will actually form another pivot, and it will either tighten up even more or just elongate the base where it really starts to have some nice symmetry, and the stock improves. It actually looks even better. And then I'll add to my position, or maybe I missed it on this one. I didn't buy it for whatever reason. And then I start watching it, and it tightens up, and it gives me that next buy point. You're going to see same thing. You're going to get the same 1-2 and the same type of setup within that larger base. Now, let me explain to you. There's like I said, there's going to be a few buy points. And within this contraction, you're going to get not just one contraction all the time where you can buy from. You're going to get multiple buy points sometimes. And I'm going to break this down. We're going to kind of go backwards from the buy point on the right side, and then where, and I'll just give you a quick history on this. I started off buying stocks coming out of these bases, and most of the time they were going into new high ground, and I was buying them off of cup with handle patterns, typical O'Neill type trades coming out of big cup with handles. And I started to notice that there was another little handle that was forming, and what looked like a bi-point within the base, sometimes earlier and a little lower than the handle. And I had a sort of a rule to just stay in the upper third of the base, and I was buying when you were in the upper third, breaking out into new highs. But I noticed in the middle third there was this little confluence area that appeared to be a nice little buy point. So I started buying it, and it was a friend of mine. We used to talk all the time on the phone. He was a trader, and he would call me up and say, "Hey, did you see Cirrus Logic and it's starting to set up?" And I'd say, "Yeah, actually, I already bought it. I cheated." So we started calling it a cheat area. Later on, we called it the cup completion cheat, meaning that the cup portion of the cup with handle had completed, but you didn't get the handle. You got this cheat area. So that started to be a buy point that I looked for first. And then if I got it, I'd get in there and I'd be in a little bit earlier, and I might even get a second buy point to add to. But sometimes you didn't even get the second buy point, and sometimes you don't get the cheat, you just get the handle. So what it did was it allowed me another opportunity to get on board a potential big winning stock. It gave me sort of another floor to get on the elevator to go from, say, we're not trying to get in the low, but now I'm getting in at floor number 2 or 3, when before I was getting in on 5 to ride to the 20th floor. Now I'm getting in on the 3rd, and I might even be able to get in on the 4th or 5th floor. So this was a stock that I did not buy off of this cheat area, but I did buy it right here when it got really, really tight. And as it came out here, as a matter of fact, this was the very first stock I started blogging. Someone, this is going way back 2010 when I don't think I was even on Twitter yet. I just started blogging, and this was the very first stock that I mentioned on my blog. I had bought it, and I had said, I think it was the same day or the next day, I had blogged that I bought Cirrus Logic, at this price, and the reasons why. Here's another one where you get the cheat area here, and then you get a second buy point. You get the little handle area. So again, prior to me recognizing the cheat area, I'd just be waiting for the full cup with handle. Now, take a look at Microsoft here. You can look at this on a weekly. Again, this is going to be the same on a weekly chart. You can look at intraday charts. It doesn't know any time frame. You're going to see these same things. They're going to work on various time frames, but I'm always using a daily chart. I'm using a daily, and then I look at the weekly, and I want to see both of them look constructive. So here's coming off of the bear market in 1990, and the low was in October, and you can see you set up what we call a 3C. Call this a 3C cup completion cheat. 3 Cs. The cheat, or I just call it the cheat, coming off the cheat, and then it sets up the handle. If you remember, I think we talked about this earlier back in 1990. Dave, you said you went into Bill's office and you said there's all these cup with handles setting up, and they put it on the front page of the paper. It said cup with handles proliferate. We talked about this earlier. This was one of them, right?
Right. Yeah.